Professional real estate investors are a different breed. We're not afraid to go all in and take educated risks to build stronger businesses and help our families live better lives. This is the Flip Nerd Professional Real Estate Investor Show, and I'm your host, Mike Hambright. Each week, I host a new episode live and bring you America's top real estate investors as guests. Let's start today's show. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me again. Wanted to jump into our second segment here of the Thankful Real Estate Investor Live event that I recently held right before Thanksgiving, and wanted to share that with all of my listeners. If you're not yet a member of the Flip Nerd private group yet, where we did this live, and we're going to be doing a lot more live and interactive content on a go-forward basis, make sure you join that group by going to flipnerd.com/pro-event. So kind of pro-event, flipnerd.com/pro-event. Let's go ahead and jump into today's segment with my good friend and actually my business partner in our lead gen agency, The Investor Machine, Mr. Jason Lewis. I actually ended up sharing it the last minute on my personal profile too, so you might be seeing it another way. This is the first event that we're doing like this, and this is actually the last event that we'll be doing like this. So you have to be in our private Flip Nerd group, which is totally free, by the way. But the way you get there is you go to flipnerd.com/pro-event. You can see the link going across the screen here. So make sure you hit that page if you're not a member of the Flip Nerd group yet. And we're going to start doing live content on almost a weekly basis. I know you're not going to be able to make them all, but you'll be able to see the recordings there as well. And our Flip Nerd group has just a ton of amazing people and content sharing Q&A type stuff in there as well. So make sure you hit that link down at the bottom of the screen here and type your questions. So next up, everyone, I want to introduce you to, if you don't already know him, my buddy, Mr. Jason Lewis. What's up, Jason? How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good to see you. Guys, Jason Lewis, I'll let him introduce himself here in a moment, but we're actually business partners in a lead gen agency, and Jason really is running a large scale wholesaling operation out in Salt Lake City, and he has just a tremendous amount of knowledge to share with you guys. So if you have questions around wholesaling, around lead generation, any of those things, this is definitely the person to ask. So Jason, welcome to the event.
Awesome. Excited to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. So while we're kind of getting settled in here, maybe you can take a moment and everybody else, you can answer this question as well. And I'll kind of ask Jason first, is to kind of share what you're most thankful for. I think in the real estate investing industry, and we've all have offshoots in other businesses, right? Because that's kind of what we do, is we have so much to be grateful for. And just wanted to kind of pick your brain on what you're grateful for. And maybe other folks can kind of chat in what they're thankful for.
First thing that comes to mind, I'm grateful to live in America, and I'm grateful for the opportunity that comes with living in America. I spent 2 years in Africa. 2 years of my life I spent in Africa, and so I got to see what it's like to not actually live in a land of opportunity. I was a missionary for my church, and there were missionaries from Africa, and there were missionaries from America and all over the world, and it was really interesting. I would be in places where there would be these guys that just came back from their missions. And when we were missionaries, we were all on a level playing field, right? We all abided by the same rules. And some of these African elders were just incredible. They worked incredibly hard. I mean, being a missionary is kind of a sales job a little bit, right? They're very similar. It's just instead of selling, buying houses, you're selling religion, right? And so you would see these guys, they'd be absolute rock stars, but then they would move back into the tiny tin shacks, and they would still have all of that same drive, all of that same energy, all of that same passion, that would cause them to be successful in real life, in the missionary world, to transfer to real life. But I didn't realize America is called the land of opportunity for a reason, right? Great, you want to get out of the poverty situation you're in. How are you going to do it? I'm going to go to school. School costs money. Okay, I'm going to get a loan. In Africa, especially that part, credit does not exist, right? There's no I'm going to go get a student loan to go to school, or I'm going to borrow something to learn, or whatever. The opportunity just wasn't there, and I would watch these guys just come back and sink into a rut, maybe get a construction job, something like that, but just not have the opportunity to take and run with it. So I'm grateful for America. And I'm grateful that really we can do and become anything we want. Every piece of information that you want to do, everything that any of the speakers here have done, you can find it online, and there's nothing stopping you from going and doing it.
It's such an amazing thing. Maybe you could share your thoughts on, because you and I we work with a lot of professional real estate investors that we serve through Investor Machine, our lead gen agency. You're a member of Investor Fuel, our mastermind. We're surrounded with a lot of great people that have achieved a lot of amazing things, right? But then there's some people that try to get started and they never get out of their own way. And I would say that they all have the same opportunity, right? I mean, I know a ton of people in this industry that are some of the most successful people in the industry, and they started with squat, right? It's not like they had some leg up on this. And what differentiates those people, do you think?
It's a good question. I think number one is drive, like just like an inherent push, drive, motivation to take it to the next level. I think number two would be my definition. Everybody has their different definition of a successful person. My definition of a successful person can be summed up in two words: persistent failure. That's it, right? So I think that the difference is some people will persist through frequent failure, and some people won't, right? So, we'll take just one example, marketing. I was just telling one of our Investor Machine members this yesterday. One of the great advantages that you have in signing up for Investor Machine is you get to skip every mistake that I made in the world.
Yeah.
Right? Like the first round of mail I ever sent, rather than sending it in 4 drops, I sent it in 1 drop. I think I paid 70 cents per postcard. And I sent like $10,000 worth. I put my cell phone number on there. And I didn't even have a CRM, right? Like, but it was
there's a bunch of mistakes in there. Yeah.
None of those are things that you want to do, right? And so, that I sent it, and I think I don't even think I sent it on the right day, right? So whatever day it hit, I just remember having one horrible day where my phone just blew up, and all of these people were swearing at me and asking me to take them off the list, and I was like writing on Post-it notes and notes in my phone, and everything else was like, these people are gonna call me if I send mail again. What do I do, right? So then it was like, all right, I better listen to some podcasts and figure some stuff out. And, it got better and better and better and better until the day where we've got an incredibly well-oiled machine. But I think persisting through the failure and the ugly and the nasty and still having the drive to get up every day. Because here's the thing, when you're an entrepreneur, there's nobody that the scary part is there's no one you're accountable to, right? I've found it's not a lot of people that can show up and bring their best every day, even though they have nobody that they're specifically accountable to.
Nobody's going to call them out if they don't do it, other than maybe a spouse, right?
Right. You may have your spouse, but most people have gotten really good at tuning that out.
Or it motivates you. I'll tell you, I have this story. By the way, while we're talking here, Jason and I are business partners. We talk all the time, guys. So we'd love to answer some of your questions about marketing. I want to start maybe just to kind of tee you guys up, share what's working now in lead generation for you, or what's not working, and then we'll talk about it with Jason as well. I'll give a little story here that I don't know why I feel the need to share this right now, because it's it kind of puts me on the hot seat a little bit. But there was a time when I left corporate America, my story, and got into real estate investing, and I didn't know. It's one of those things where it's kind of hard when you're new to make it a full-time job. Like, you send marketing out, you're waiting for the phone to ring. It's like, well, what else are you doing, right? And our son, my son Jake, he was 1 when we started, and I remember Lindsay asking me this question. Like, there'd never been a time, like, we both came from corporate jobs. We actually were pretty well compensated until I lost my job, and she quit her job to have Jake. And she said, "Do you think you'll be able to support us?" And I'd never nobody'd ever asked to see my man card before. And it was just like, oh shit. It was just hit me so hard. It's like, oh my God, this is real now. I gotta make this work. But anyway.
Yeah. 3 years ago, I left my job in the space, started brand new. I had twins that were coming. I started in September. The twins were born in November, which were kids 4 and 5 for me in 5 years. Right. So it's like, the back's against the wall. This is going to work no matter what. Right. Like, I don't care. Yeah. I think there's power in having that I will do whatever it takes to make sure that it works mentality.
Yep. And this discussion is all kind of stemming from you a moment ago, saying that some people, and I said this yesterday on a show, or I think I was on somebody else's podcast yesterday, and that some people see failure as final, right? And some see failure as, well, I know what not to do next time, and they just keep going. And I think that as entrepreneurs, failure has to be a stepping stone to the next step. It has to be a learning opportunity. If you quit then you in fact have failed instead, and it is final, right?
Absolutely. And those that know me well know that that is not my wiring. I had to become that way. Like,
Yeah.
I was the kid that took his first couple of steps, fell and it hurt, and didn't try again for like 3 months. Right? Like, all through junior high and high school, I never failed at anything. Every team I ever tried out for, I made. Every girl I ever asked on a date said yes. I liked the same girl for like 3 years, but asked her on one date the whole time because I was scared of getting told no or failing. Right? Like, I was Captain Cautious. So through listening to self-improvement, I learned the value of, failure, and the reframing in the mind of like, failure isn't all bad. Like, failure is great. Failure is how you learn. And failure is just a step closer to the end destination. That said, I'm not a huge fan of repeat pain even still. Like, if I have something that really sucks, that, really hurts, that's a failure. I'm okay to fail and hurt again, but not doing the same thing that I did before. If that makes sense.
Yep, absolutely. So, Jason, just to give some perspective, how many deals will you do this year in Salt Lake City? Primarily wholesaling, but how many deals will you do this year?
I think we're pacing to do about 160.
160 wholesale deals, so it probably puts you
no, 100. I think probably 140 wholesale deals and 20 flips.
Okay, so do 160 deals this year in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, homes that I rehabbed and either rented, turned into an Airbnb, or flipped and sold.
Yep. So that all comes with a lot of advertising. Now, you and I believe the same thing, that our businesses come through advertising, some through networking and other things, but mostly through paid advertising, because that's scalable, right? You can just turn the knobs up and throttle your business as long as your operation will handle that. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what's working out. Also, we run an agency called The Investor Machine, for those of you guys that don't know that already. And we work in about 50 markets nationwide now with a lot of really amazing real estate investors. So we learn a lot through our own stuff, and then through representing a lot of other people too. So what's working best for you right now? What would you say is kind of working best for you?
Yeah. So you've heard me say it before. My rule of thumb is that which is hard works better, right? When I was lucky, I started in 2017. Marketing was definitely easier then. I think I just went to List Source and pulled a list of absentees with equity back then, right? But as things got tighter, there's a common list that a lot of people really like to buy, called the Richter list or the Audantic list. That list was locked up in my area. And so I needed to figure out, okay, as the cheese is moving to harder and harder things, what do I need to do in order to keep getting the same return that I'm getting? So that's when I've always had a propensity for and love of VAs. So that's when I hired and figured out training VAs to log actually into the individual county, and going and pulling every single motivation point you could possibly imagine. I think we're up to like 40 different points that we pull, and then mailing them, texting them, cold calling them. That I would say is overall working best for me right now. I also do PPC and SEO. I do have a Carrot website with Trevor, where he was right before. And yes, I've spent a lot of time, effort, and money making a lot of the adjustments that he suggested. We do Facebook retargeting. I do networking and relationship deals as well. But I would say if there was one thing that overall works best, it would be doing the hard stuff, and getting the right sellers to focus in on, and marketing them by land, sea, and air.
Let's talk. That's perfect. Let's talk about that a little bit, because I think a lot of people struggle with the foundation of everything that we do is building a better mousetrap by building a better list of who to market to, right? And I think the days are over where you could just mail to agent equity and be able to afford that, and even be able to stand out, because that's what all the newbies are doing, because that's what all the newbie coaching programs teach, because it's the easiest data to get and it's the cheapest to get. But it's as you said, it's so easy that everybody's doing it. When you start to do stuff that's hard, you have less competition because there's less people doing it. So any kind of words of wisdom on, and I think one of the things that I want to share with some of you guys, depending on how much experience you have, is Jason basically just said he's doing a ton of dozens of different things, right? And I think somebody asked earlier with online lead gen with Trevor on, like, what's the first thing you do with starting with online lead gen? And so sometimes when you hear somebody like Jason talk, or somebody that's been around for a long time, you realize that what they just said is like impossible for you to go start doing, right? And so maybe Jason, you could say if you had to start over again and you had a limited budget and you could just do one thing, what would that be?
Tell me, what market am I in? The answer actually changes a pretty good chunk based on all of your goals. So you got to give me a little more. What market am I in?
So let's say you're in a hyper competitive market like Dallas or Phoenix or one of those markets.
Okay, so we're gonna throw me in Phoenix. Okay,
yeah.
So here's what I would do. First thing I would do is I would find, I would get the notice of defaults, I would get the tax delinquents, I would get the probates and vacants. I would get that list, and then I personally would call them, and then I would text them, and I would send them the nicest, most expensive mailer I could find. Go deep with the few, basically. But because it's a few, it's not going to break the bank. I also am a big fan of driving for dollars. I would get in my car and go look for homes that look like they need to be fixed up, and then same thing, call them, text them. I would specifically note the ones that I couldn't get a hold of because the phone number was wrong, right? I skip traced them through one of the same places that most people skip trace through, and it comes back that we don't have the right number. So then I would just start skip tracing through a variety of other different places to try to get a better phone number, because again, that which is hard works best. And when you're the only person that has the phone number of that person that has a notice of default, and you're the only one talking to them, you're far more likely to get that first closing.
Yeah, so, if you're the type that gets like stacks of mail back like this and just sets them in a pile and does nothing with it, which is honestly what I did for like 10 years, then everybody's doing that, because that's the easiest thing to do, is just put it in a stack, right? But if you're saying, hey, everybody's having a hard time getting a hold of these people, let me figure out how to take it to another level and go get to those folks, right? Whether it's skip tracing, and if you try one skip tracing service and that doesn't work, go to another one. Like, those things are hard, and they sounds like that's time consuming, but the truth is that that's what you have to do to stand out. Otherwise, it's hard to compete.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I would do is I would work networking channels. I would work Facebook groups, let people know you're looking for deals. I would work, I would Facebook friend every real estate agent you can possibly imagine, and then click Facebook posts that say, hey, I'm looking for deals. I know some people with small budgets locally that do that, and it works incredibly well.
Let's talk about that, because you've had some really good success with networking. Maybe you could share some kind of thoughts on, you just said real estate agents. So I think that a lot of investors that are not also agents kind of think that how could an agent help me? I mean, they're dealing in the retail space, but talk about why that's not true.
Yeah. So are we talking agents specifically?
Yeah. If you wanted to start networking with agents and effectively say, bring me your the deals that you don't want to list effectively, right? Or the ones that are distressed, or the ones that want to sell like a lot faster. Like, talk about your kind of strategy there.
Yep. So I have been working with agents longer than I've been marketing. So previous to marketing, there was enough of that to go around that was all that we did. As time moved on, we moved into marketing as well. But so the idea is, here is all of the sellers. It's really hard to get this exactly right on camera. There we go. It's like reverse. Here is all of the sellers that a realtor might have, right? Most of them are going to be best served by a traditional real estate process, but this little sliver of them is best served by working directly with an investor. This is somebody who their priority is not price. Their priority is convenience. And when you go the traditional real estate route, it is not a convenient route. You've got tons of people walking through the house whenever they want. You've got inspections, you've got meth tests. Then they come back and they say, oh, your house has meth. You've got radon tests. They say your house has radon. You got and then they cancel them and they try to negotiate and talk you down for less. And just this whole inconvenient mess is the traditional real estate process. So you want to make sure people know, hey, when you meet that seller, I will help them bypass the inconvenient route and give you the convenient route. Now, the rules changed on this about a year ago. They passed a rule for the nationwide realtors. It's called, I can't remember what it's called. So if someone remembers what it's called, chat it in. But basically, realtors, as soon as they sign a listing agreement, they've got 3 days that they have to list it on the MLS. So the idea of just signing a listing agreement and then sending it over to you is harder now than it was before, because it does still have to be put on the MLS.
Can't get like those pocket listings necessarily. Right?
Yeah, now I still get pocket listings all the time. There's just a little bit more steps. It's just not as easy. So one is you can get a pocket listing and you say, hey, I will pay you as the agent a buyer's agent commission instead of them paying you as the agent a listing agent commission if you send it to me. But they can't have a listing agreement. The other thing that they can do is they can still pocket listing it to you, but they still have to list it on the MLS. And so I've done a few of those as well. Where they wind up sending it my way, but it does get listed on the MLS and it just goes under contract shortly after it's listed on the MLS.
Yep.
So I think it's clear. I came up with it.
Go ahead. Say that again.
I think it's clear cooperation.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that I think people struggle with is keeping that treating like networking, like having a system and process for it. Like a lot of people think networking is just like, oh, I'm just going to call some people every once in a while and they're in my phone and I call them. But if you really want to do this well, you have to have a systematic approach to, just like you do follow up for other motivated seller leads, right? I follow up with people in my network on a regular cycle, whatever that might be. Kind of share some of the things that you're doing process wise or system wise, even that make that efficient. Yeah.
So right now, I get the feeling based on our conversation that a lot of our audience is probably newer investors, right?
Could be a little bit of both. Yeah.
A little bit of mix. So I'm going to talk like I'm talking to newer investors on this, like I would do it if I was like a one-man show, rather than how I do it now with like a team of 5 people doing it for me. So, but whether I'm talking as a one-man show or as a team, you just make it bigger as a team. So I set up a CRM just like you do for normal clients, but instead in my CRM is agents with specific times to follow up. Now, I don't like just random cold following up. And so what I like to do is I like to talk to agents about properties that they have. Okay. So I get on the MLS, figure out some way to get MLS access. You can even do it through Zillow because we're talking active homes, not sold homes. I get on the MLS and I sort by price per square foot lowest. Okay. And I look at the lowest, worst house. Because here's the other thing, like I still buy houses off the MLS, even today. I had one, this was awesome. This happened last week. One of my relationship managers, so I pay a virtual assistant to hunt the MLS every day. And then I've got relationship managers who actually will take and go and talk to the agents after the fact. So my virtual assistant found a house, relationship manager talked to him. I got it under contract and I sent it out. You have to disclose that it's listed with an agent and everything else. But I sent it out and we're making, I think it closes tomorrow, and we're making 30 grand on this house, right? Literally all I did was find a house on the MLS, get it under contract, send it out to my list, collect 30 grand. Like that's living the dream right there, right? No marketing cost, no, nothing. So
how did you, I might have like, my mind went blank for a second there. So how are you able to get a deal for that much off the MLS for that much below market value?
So here's what we do. I pay a virtual assistant to look at the MLS to see anything that might meet basically one of the pillars of motivation, right? If it needs fixing up, I will have my relationship manager, which if I was small would be me, get on the phone with the agent and just call them and say, hey, where's your seller at? Would they be willing to look at a lower offer, right? You'd be shocked how much lower people will take on an MLS deal from time to time. Again, this used to be everything that I did. Now it's a small portion of what I do because it's just a tighter marketing channel than it used to be, especially in competitive markets.
Right.
But so it was a duplex, and we just call them and we just say, hey, where's your seller at? With are they ready to be done? Or, because oftentimes seller will list stuff for their optimistic amount, but they don't really need the money. And eventually there comes a point where it's like, I just want to be done with this, right? Yeah. So we say, look, you got it listed for 270. Really, like 220 is it for us. I know it's 50,000 low. I don't want to piss your seller off, but I promise we'll be quick. We can close quick. Everything else, you good to work with us? They say, yep. Obviously, a lot say no, not interested, but it's a numbers game, right? In this case, you're just working with people who are actively looking to sell a house, right?
Yep.
It's better than cold calling because you're at least talking to people whose intent is to sell that haven't sold yet.
Yeah, and you don't forget about the motivation of the agent either. I mean, they generally are always looking out for the best interest of their client, but when you say, hey, we can close on this house in a week and you can represent both sides and stuff like that, I mean, that carries some weight, right?
It does. Yep. So we talk them down. I think on this case, we talked them down 50 grand. Okay. And I honestly don't remember. I'm pulling these numbers out of my backside. If you want to know the truth, I know we're making 30, but
that's what real estate investors do generally. So.
I know that we're making 30. That's the one number that I know, but I don't know exactly how much less compared to above the list price that we were. As an example, we talk them down 50 grand. I send it out to my list. It's still 20 grand less than it is on the MLS. And actually we've gotten really good at dispositioning on my end. And so usually what happens is I'll send it out for slightly less than what it's listed for. And then I'll get a bidding war up to above what it was listed for, right? We can wholesale houses for more than what people can sell houses for on the MLS here. But as an example, you talk them down 50 grand, then you mark it up 30 grand, you make the 30 grand, and it's still 20 grand less than what they could have got it on the MLS for. So essentially the value that you're providing is you discovered motivation in a seller that the agent didn't, and that no other investor did.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
So the MLS, even in hyper competitive markets, can still be a place that generates deals. They're typically skinnier and they definitely still take work. But here's the other part that I wanted to make sure I went over with that is I don't just make that a transaction. Along the way, I become best friends with the agent. And I say, hey, next time, rather than having this house sit for a month because you guys listed it overpriced, everything else, why don't you bring it to me beforehand when you get a similar seller again next time? And then you continue that relationship. So it's not really like a cold call or a cold relationship. You're talking to that agent about what their job is, which is selling a house that they have listed. Just oftentimes it's for a discount.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Guys, so you guys didn't ask a lot of questions about lead gen here. We had a lead gen expert in the house. But I'll say this, just a little bit of a shameless plug. We do run a professional agency called The Investor Machine. We only bring on professional investors that are actively doing deals every month already. If you're interested at all, you could go to theinvestormachine.com and you can schedule a call with us if you want to learn more about it, if it's a fit. But we're doing some pretty amazing things and growing pretty rapidly. So, and some of our markets are already closed. We only allow a certain number of people per market. So just go to theinvestormachine.com. You can learn more there. So Jason, hey, thanks for spending some time with us today, buddy.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks.
Good to see you. We'll be talking soon, I'm sure, probably even later today. So appreciate you guys. See you, Jason.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Everybody give Jason a little love there if you don't mind. Thanks for joining me on today's episode. There are 3 ways I help successful real estate investors take their businesses and their lives to the next level. First, if you're in search of a community of successful real estate investors that help one another take their businesses to the next level, and a life-changing community of lifelong friends, please learn more about my Investor Fuel Real Estate Mastermind by visiting investorfuel.com. If you'd like a cutting-edge solution for the very best done-for-you lead generation on the planet, where we're handling the lead generation for many of America's top real estate investors, please learn more at theinvestormachine.com. And lastly, if you're interested in a free online community of professional real estate investors that isn't full of spam, solicitations, and newbie questions, please join my free Professional Real Estate Investor Facebook group by visiting flipnerd.com/professional.